When I step out of work after a shift and I step into the cold, fresh air, I really struggle to wind down. I've got a reasonably long commute to my place of work, and so I try to use that time to help relax me and unwind, because when I get home I want to be able to be present with my family and I don't want to be distracted by thinking about work worries or stresses. I do this by a mixture of podcasts, books and newsletters. So here is my choice of podcast, book and newsletter that you can check out to help you wind down on your commute home. My podcast recommendation is Heavyweight by Jonathan Goldstein. This is a wonderful podcast that will make you laugh and cry. It appeals to me because it has elements of storytelling where we get to hear more about people's lives and some of the highs and lows, but in a very engaging and light-hearted way. The premise is that Jonathan Goldstein essentially reunites people who have previously been connected in some way but then have grown apart or maybe only fleetingly met, and he explores what happened at the time and their memories of their experiences, and it's really a very meaningful podcast. To give you some examples, some things where there was someone who got hit by a car when he was riding on a bike and he had a significant recovery from this, but he'd never met the person who hit him, and together they reunited, and we heard both of their stories about how their lives had been affected and also what led up to that happening. But some of them will be more minor. They might be a memory that they've had, so someone remembered breaking their arm when they were a kid but the family said this didn't happen, so they looked into that a bit more. One that was great was Jonathan Goldstein had a therapist that stopped therapy with him because the therapy wasn't working and it wasn't going to happen, and he spent ages thinking about why this had happened and why it had failed, and so he tried to track down the therapist. I'm going to put links to these three in the notes underneath, but there's so many good episodes on there and there's more being released all the time, so check out Heavyweight. I read a lot of non-fiction, but as part of our DFTB Discord community book group, we've been doing a book a month, and our first book was a book that I really recommend to you, which is This Is How It Always Is by Laurie Frankel. This book is a novel about a family with 5 boys, but one of the boys, the youngest, feels like there's something different, and the youngest child feels like they are not a boy, but they're a girl. It's the story about how the family supports, copes and adjusts to this transition. This book had loads of themes that really resonated with me, not just as a paediatrician but more so as a parent. It explored how sharing connects us and keeping secrets keeps us apart. One of the themes that came out in the book was that it wasn't so much about the issue itself, which was about the gender issues and dilemmas, but it was actually that keeping secrets from their friends and family caused problems and put up barriers, and it's definitely something that I reflect on in my own life. I'm trying to be more open and more vulnerable with my friends and those around me to help build that connection, because we don't build better relationships by keeping secrets. The book really explores the theme of how we manage to parent and deal with uncertainty, and this is something that I really connected with as a mother of 3 children. None of us are parenting experts. I'm trying to learn as I go and work with my husband to be the best parents we can be. And we really have this challenge of allowing our children to express themselves and wanting to encourage them to be themselves, but also trying to protect them and being uncertain that we're making the right decisions. This really came out in this book. The parents are trying to do the best for the child, maybe not always getting it right, or certainly not knowing if they're getting it right. And we have this weight on us, are the decisions I'm making for my kids now going to adversely impact them in 15 years' time? And it's quite possible that they will, but as parents, I need to just do my best and make the best decisions that I can. The book also explores the idea of us being in a transition between our past and our future. And again, this really resonated with me. I've lived in different countries, I've had different jobs, I've had different types of relationships, and I also have a vision of what lies ahead for me, my career, my family, and I'm in the period in between that, as we all are, so how I connect what's been with what's coming and how I make that transition. And that's really what the family was experiencing there. They'd had a previous life where they thought something was one way, and they were trying to imagine what the future would or could be like, and it's how we get from one to the other. I think this book was very meaningful for me as a parent, and is also a benefit as a paediatrician, so please check it out. I have really got into newsletters. I used to think newsletters were just really lame and would never have anything useful, but actually finding curated newsletters that are really suitable for you has really improved the way I think about the world and the type of projects I take on. So I'm going to recommend David Perell's newsletter. David writes about writing, so how we can be better writers, and that can apply to your blog posts, your journal articles, that book you wanted to write. He sends a weekly newsletter which shares thoughts on how we can practically improve how we're writing. So I often find it hard to sit down and start writing something because I don't think it'll be any good, or I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. And part of what he does is create frameworks to encourage us just to sit down and get something written every day. It's really starting to change the way that I approach my writing. So take a look. That's my podcast, book and newsletter recommendation. Please let me know what you think about them and what your recommendations are.